Reach is a measurable physical constant, but distance is a psychological variable that you can manipulate through rhythm and head position. While most coaches tell you to simply get inside, charging blindly into a taller opponent's range is a guaranteed way to run into a knee or a stiff jab. Controlling the distance against a longer fighter isn't about being faster, it's about making their longest weapons functionally useless by living in the gaps of their timing. You have to understand that a taller fighter's reach is only an advantage when they can maintain the specific extension where their knuckles or shins meet your target at the peak of their kinetic energy. If you are 1 inch too far, they miss. If you are 6 inches too close, they lack the leverage to hurt you. The secret to beating height isn't just closing the gap, but owning the transition between the outside and the inside so that your opponent never feels comfortable enough to let their hands go. The fundamental principle you need to master is the concept of the dead zone. Every taller fighter has a range where they are king, which is usually at the end of their straight punches. Most shorter fighters make the mistake of hovering just outside this range, trying to time a perfect entry. The problem is that while you are waiting, the taller fighter is using their lead hand to probe, measure, and keep you reset. By staying in that limbo range, you are giving them exactly what they want, a stationary target at a predictable distance. You need to understand the physics of the lever. A taller fighter's arm is a long lever, and long levers are strongest and most dangerous at the tip. However, these same levers are incredibly weak and cumbersome at the base, which is the shoulder and the chest. Your goal is to move from the tip of the lever to the base of the lever as efficiently as possible, but you cannot do that by moving in a straight line. If you move straight in, you are moving along the same track that their power shots travel. Instead, you must think of distance as a three-dimensional puzzle where your head position determines the reach of your opponent. When you change your level or slip your head off the center line, you are effectively lengthening the distance their punch has to travel to find you, which buys you the microseconds needed to bridge the gap. To apply this in a live scenario, you have to start with the false front. This is where you use your lead hand and your footwork to feed the taller fighter a dummy distance. You stand just at the edge of their jab range, but you keep your weight slightly on your back leg. You want to bait them into throwing that long jab because that jab is your invitation. If you wait for them to be set and ready, they will pick you apart. If you bait the jab by leaning your head slightly forward and then pulling it back, you force them to overextend. The moment that jab is fully extended, the bridge is built. You don't wait for them to retract the hand, you move as the hand is reaching its peak. As they throw, you aren't just moving forward, you are moving diagonally. If they are an orthodox fighter throwing a jab, you slip to the outside, moving your lead foot toward their 2 o'clock position. This diagonal entry is crucial because it takes you out of the line of their follow-up cross and puts you at an angle where their long arms are now trapped and tangled. Once you have bridged that gap, the most common mistake you will likely make is trying to land a knockout blow immediately and then resetting back to the outside. This is a trap. If you land one punch and then jump back out, you have to do the hardest part of the fight, getting inside, all over again. Instead, you must implement the crowding principle. When you get inside, you stay inside. You want to put your forehead right on their collarbone or the center of their chest. By maintaining physical contact, you are using your sense of touch to track their movement, which is faster than using your eyes. When you are this close, the taller fighter cannot generate power because they cannot extend their limbs. They will try to push you away or step back to regain their range. This is where you must become a shadow. If they step back, you don't just follow, you step through to keep your head on their chest. You are effectively taking away their ability to see the distance. If you are constantly glued to them, their height becomes a liability because they have to punch down at you, which exposes their chin and limits their hip rotation. If your opponent is particularly good at using a stiff arm or a long frame to keep you away, you have to address the hands before you address the head. This is called hand fighting for distance. Instead of looking for the head, you use your lead hand to parry and pin their lead hand down. By putting your weight on their lead hand, you create a physical barrier that prevents them from jabbing. If they can't jab, they can't measure the distance. When you feel them try to pull their hand back to reset, that is your cue to explode inward. If they are a fighter who likes to use their knees or front kicks to keep you at bay, you have to change your rhythm. Taller fighters rely on a steady beat to time their long-range weapons. You can break this by using stutter steps or broken rhythm footwork. Instead of a steady march, you take two quick short steps, a pause, and then a long explosive burst. This inconsistency makes it impossible for them to know exactly when you are going to enter the dead zone. Integrating this into your training requires a shift in how you approach sparring and shadowboxing. You shouldn't just practice hitting a bag, you should practice entering the bag. Every time you throw a combination on the heavy bag, you should end by moving your head and stepping in close to the bag, imagining you are putting your head on a taller opponent's chest. This builds the habit of staying in the pocket rather than retreating. When you spar, seek out the tallest partners in the gym and ask them to play a specific game. Tell them their only job is to keep you away with the jab and long kicks, while your only job is to touch their chest with your forehead without getting hit. Don't even worry about throwing punches at first. Just focus on the feel of the distance. You will start to notice the seams in their defense, the moments when their weight is too far forward or when they are mid-retraction. As you get more comfortable, start combining your entries with blinding shots. Instead of throwing a power jab to the face, throw a flicker jab at their eyes. You aren't trying to cause damage, you are trying to force their hands to come up and their vision to blur for a fraction of a second. Under the cover of that blur, you bridge the gap. Long-term mastery of distance control against taller fighters comes down to your ability to stay calm in the fire. You have to accept that to get to your range, you have to pass through theirs. If you are afraid of getting hit, you will hesitate, and hesitation in the dead zone is what gets you knocked out. By practicing your diagonal entries and your crowding techniques consistently, you turn the taller fighter's reach into a cage that traps them, rather than a weapon that keeps you out. Over time, you'll find that being the shorter fighter is actually an advantage because you control where the fight happens, forcing the giant to fight in a phone booth where only you have the room to swing. Reach is just a measurement, but distance is yours to dictate if you have the discipline to own the space between the punches.